You got options. Execute your trade. You bet your money just got laid. Convex.
Welcome to You Got Options, an exciting series right here on Top Traders Unplugged, hosted by none other than Cem Karsan, one of the sharpest minds when it comes to understanding what's really driving market moves beneath the surface. In this series, Cem brings his deep expertise and unique perspective, honed from years of experience on the trading floor to candid conversations with some of the brightest minds in the industry. Together, they unpack the shifting tides and underlying forces that move markets and the opportunities they create. A quick reminder before we dive in. You Got Options is for informational and educational purposes only. None of the discussions you're about to hear should be considered investment advice. As always, please do your own research and consult with a professional advisor before making any investment decisions. Now, what makes this series truly special is that it's recorded right from the heart of the action on the trading floor of the SIBO. That means you might catch a little background buzz, phones ringing, traders shouting, as Cem and his guests unpack real-world insights in real time. We wouldn't have it any other way, because this is as authentic as it gets. And with that, it's time to hear from those who live and breathe this complex corner of the markets. Here is your host, Cem Karsan.
Welcome back to another episode of You Got Options from the SIBO floor, brought to you by Kai Media and Top Traders Unplugged. Today, we're at the Robinhood Hood Summit here in Las Vegas, and we get to talk to no other than the man himself, Vlad Tenev, the CEO of Robinhood. They made some incredible announcements today, but we start at the beginning with him talking about copper pots and his experience in Bulgaria, all the way to the macro environment and democratizing all of the things that your retail trader needs to have to navigate this environment. I hope you enjoy this one.
Yo, live it up, don't settle for less. You got options. Put your skills to the test. It's your call, time to strike. Make your move, grab the mic. You got options. Execute your trade. You bet your money just got laid. Convex. Time to straight the fade. It's the nexus of the game.
Welcome back to another episode of You Got Options. Today, Vlad Tenev here at the Robinhood Summit. Looking forward to having a conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I know we have a lot in common, actually. My grandfather came from Bulgaria. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. I remember hearing about your story about copper pots. I wanted to kind of lead off with a little personal anecdote. Do you mind telling the audience about kind of that experience for you and how it shaped your...
Yeah, so I moved from Bulgaria to the U.S. in 1992. I was the third person in my family. So my dad moved in 91. My mom moved a year later, and I came 6 months after she did. So we didn't have enough money to send the whole family at once. It was kind of like my dad had to get established. My mom had to make sure, everything was actually in order. And then I came with my aunt, who was like a teenage punk rock person.
How old were you?
I was 5. And so 1991, my last year in Bulgaria, the inflation rate was something like 150%. Quite high compared to what we're seeing in the US, the 5% whereabouts inflation, which is making people crazy, right? But 150% in 1991. In 1997, which was I'd been in America for 5 years, Bulgaria had the unfortunate distinction of the highest inflation rate in the world at 2,000%. So my grandparents, who were still in Bulgaria, basically had their pensions evaporate. They were retired. And my grandfather was a doctor for a naval ship. And so he had some friends that, were importing and exporting things in the ports. So he had the idea of investing in copper cookware. Of course, Bulgaria didn't have Robinhood back then. So he had this closet full of copper pots and pans, and that's how he would store his wealth. And, I thought there would have to be a better way. So with smartphones and technology, now we can prevent you from needing to do that.
That's amazing. I can totally relate, because in Turkey the last couple of years, where my family is from, there's been 80% plus inflation recently.
Yep.
In the last couple of years.
And they're trading a lot of crypto. They're holding crypto.
A ton of crypto. Everybody I know everybody in Turkey has an app on their phone to trade exchange, at least FX.
Yeah.
So they can hedge the currency. And that's a day-to-day occurrence. So I think it's really interesting. Some of the things you guys announced today are particularly apropos given some of these macro things that we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
The introduction of futures in particular, I think, short selling, options, right? And the ability to hedge and play kind of dimensionality.
Yeah.
Really, really amazing.
Even social, so you can track trends and, learn from your peers. We have a lot of smart people that are trading on Robinhood. And if you could tap into that wisdom of the crowd, I think this is a very powerful tool.
I completely agree. And then we have AI, right? Which allows us to bring it all together.
Make sense of all the information that's out there.
That's right. Democratize a lot of the trading that institutions have now done through other periods. If you think about the 1960s and 70s, which is the inflationary period that most people are historically aware of here in the US, that was an incredibly difficult period for equity and bond holders.
Yeah.
Bond holders is obvious to people, but most people don't realize from 1968 to 1982 that the S&P 500 lost 50% of its value in real terms.
Yeah.
Equities are often not a hedge to inflation, right? Because the multiple contraction that you get, right? If you can get a 20% bond for 10 years from the US government, which you could in 1982, you're going to demand a much higher earnings yield from your equities, right? And what was the best performing asset 1968 to 82? Gold, right?
Yeah.
Copper did pretty well too. But energy, which was about 5% in 68, in 1982 was 30% of the S&P 500. It's kind of a mind-blowing stat.
That is wild to think about. Yeah, I mean, S&P 500 in particular, the turnover in the companies is pretty amazing. I mean, you look now versus 2000. I think 2000 ExxonMobil was the highest market cap company in the S&P 500.
It was, absolutely.
Yeah, and now it's not even in the top 20, right?
Correct. Yeah. 2.5% to 3% of the S&P right now is in energy. That's a bull case for energy. We don't need to talk about that, but there are lots of other stocks that also perform really well in a higher inflationary regime. One of them are exchanges like the SIBO. Another one is brokerage businesses because input costs don't go up nearly as much as earnings during those periods. So
yeah, that's true. Fortunate that our costs are largely fixed and independent of, tariffs and prices of raw materials by and large.
Yeah.
I mean, there's somewhat compute you can think of as a commodity in some ways. And we use compute, but not nearly to the extent that other companies do.
Agreed. And so I want to kind of dive into all those little announcements you had and kind of talk about some of what you're most excited about as it relates to them. I do think that they all are in a bit of a bull market. I'll paint this last kind of data picture for people. There are $500 trillion globally in long assets. And that I include equities, bonds, private equity, private credit, real estate.
Yeah.
Right. These are what the majority of people invest in. And in the last 3 years, we've seen non-correlated assets, think crypto, think precious metals, also hedge fund assets, as well as structured products, so options positioning, you can get into, have all grown from 4-5 trillion just 3 years ago to 15 trillion.
Yeah.
So you have this massive supply and demand imbalance, and people are trying to get more non-correlated at record valuations, given some of the things we've talked about, the inflationary pressures and the uncertainty. And so I think it's really apropos that you guys have now introduced a lot of these other, again, futures, options, and short selling. So I'd love to kind of start with the commodity piece.
Yeah.
Futures, the futures trading, which also includes other things. What different commodities do you guys allow? I know you have 40 different commodities that you guys look at or that allow people.
Yeah, I mean, all the major ones, gold, copper. We talked a lot about copper. Yeah, I mean, if it's a liquid tradable name, I know we offer a lot of CME products. I think we offer some SIBO products as well. We'd like to add it to the platform. We also have prediction markets. I mean, we not quite futures outrights, but very popular among those that want to hedge their macro risk.
Completely.
So I was looking at, we have number of rate cuts between now and the end of the year. Next rate cut, 81% say it's going to be 25 basis points.
Right.
CPI print. So yeah, it's really, we're trying to make it so that you can make a targeted trade for any position.
Yeah, in a more multipolar world, which we're starting to see, right, for a lot of reasons. You know, in the 60s and 70s, which is a great comparison, we see much more volatility in non-equity and bond assets, actually.
Yeah.
You would think equity volatility would increase. It actually doesn't in a meaningful way in that kind of 60s and 70s period. Because they're nominal assets, what you actually see is FX and interest rate volatility goes through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes sense, right? But things like precious metal, which would kind of fall in that bucket, maybe crypto, are also things that see more volatility. And those are great things to trade for your traders. So, really excited for what you're kind of opening up here for a much wider audience. And as you guys have always done, as Robinhood implies, kind of democratizing that piece.
Yeah.
That's largely been part of an institutional crowd set of trades to a much broader audience.
Yeah, we launched futures last year at the first Hood Summit, and we launched a ladder alongside it, but it was all on mobile. And we also launched our desktop web product for more prosumer investors, Robinhood Legend. And this year, we're kind of like expanding both of these and merging them. So futures is coming on Legend. We're expanding the ladder, which started on mobile, to Legend as well, and to all sorts of asset classes like equities and crypto. And so now it's gone from primarily being a mobile app for first-time investors to a comprehensive financial super app on desktop and mobile, so that we can meet traders where they are, not just with the products, but also the interfaces.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about options, right? That's my kind of big kind of background and a lot of what we talk about on this show. Couple of things that you guys announced today. One, 24-hour like overnight trading for index options and several kind of different options, which I think is a huge deal given, again, the multipolar world and the 24-hour nature now of global markets. But also, I thought the coolest thing was, and the thing that, gets somebody like me excited, is really the ability to simulate, right, outcomes with options. All too often, I talk to retail traders and they understand the kind of the two-dimensionality of betting on an upside outcome or a downside outcome, but the time decay and the implied volatility effects. I actually talk a lot about third-order Greeks or second-order Greeks like Vana and Charm. These things are really important.
Or even a spread and having multiple legs and being able to visualize what that looks like to your P&L at expiry or at different times. It can be tricky to do that all in your head or on pencil and paper.
And the options market is like the volume's going through the roof, right? And that's happening. I've talked about this on other episodes and other places, but really as a function of it being a much more precise and dynamic tool to express positioning.
Yeah.
Right? You get to play not in two dimensions, up and down, but really in time and space. You can have any moment on a distribution, right? And bet on that precise outcome. And so, I think of that as a new technology, as like this, you're on this kind of tipping point on that. And releasing that simulation allows your retail trader to better absorb that and manage that kind of exposure.
It's really about giving people the tools to actually like save time. So, I was telling you this earlier, we actually go into our options traders' homes. They invite us, of course, but we go and watch them trade options. Yeah. And when we first started doing this, our mind was blown by just how much work they were doing outside of the platform. Like they would have these subscription-based tools to do things like what simulator returns on Legend does today. They were paying, upwards of $100 a month. They were doing just a lot of mental math or math on pencil and paper. Right. They had their spreadsheets, and much of the work was happening off platform. And we thought, why don't we save them this time and actually automate more and more of that so that the entire trade life cycle happens on our platform. And I think we've been working on that. We've still got a ways to go. There's more tools to add, but I think just like going through that process has been a big reason why we've been growing our market share in options so much.
It's a huge deal. I think bigger than most appreciate. I mean, I know we run hedge funds. I know other hedge funds that don't even have this level of sophistication that you have, that are trading stocks and bonds, occasionally options, but they themselves struggle with this. So I think you're not only giving the broad militia and the people, right, the weapons and tools they need to compete, versus some maybe even an advantage. And that's actually huge.
The goal would be to make it so that if you're a retail trader, you're at a disadvantage using any other platform. And, you mentioned 24-hour market on the equity side was kind of a very clear way we delivered that. Stuff happens on weekends, Sunday evening, or after hours. And, if you're on another platform that doesn't allow you to trade during those times, you're at a disadvantage, not just in pursuing other opportunities, making new trades, but even just risk management, closing your positions, hedging your positions. So yeah, I mean, you look at overnight index options, an extension of that, right? Like
Absolutely.
Now more and more news happens overnight that affects the macro, but also individual companies. And the goal is to just make it seamless. Like crypto is 24/7. There's no reason why, options and all sorts of traditional assets shouldn't be as well.
I couldn't agree more. In the 60s and 70s, again, just to highlight that period, because again, an inflationary period, you had a significant inequality build that happened as a function of that flat tax, essentially, of inflation hitting everybody. And a lot of institutional entities had the ability to hedge or to kind of limit their risk. Nowadays, you have access to, again, options were created in 1971. The SIBO was created then. That's not a coincidence. The capital efficiency, the dynamism, and ability to play dimensionality was why they became so popular during that time.
Yeah.
And I think, giving access to the tools and ability to focus on those things is incredible for the average retail investor.
Yeah. I think a big part also is making sure they know how to use these tools. I think AI plays a big role. And one of the areas we're excited to further develop Cortex is in mapping your intent to an options trade. Also, things like what you guys are doing, educating customers, talking about the different trades you can put on, the different strategies. We do a little bit of that, but it's clear as the products get more sophisticated, the education has to kind of keep pace as well, while still being engaging for people and sort of like meeting them on the platforms that they use. So I'm looking forward to having really good options education content on Robinhood social itself. I think that'll be really, really cool. If we become the best place to learn and generate ideas and not just execute the trade.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to get to the social part as well. But to touch on that connection between AI and options, I think that's so important. We have technologies that have come along over hundreds and thousands of years that we take for granted that not everybody understands. You plug, your cord into an electrical socket.
Yes.
You don't think about all that's happening on the other side, right? I think options are a better technology. They're a way to play in 3 dimensions instead of 2.
Yeah.
The problem is some of the complexity, right? At this juncture, until we bridge that gap for people, has not allowed us to get to that tipping point. But now we have daily options. We have more access, more education.
Yep.
All of those network effects right now, more volume has allowed it to kind of, again, reach that tipping point. And I think AI is the key to unlocking that final move to everybody moving from eventually 2-dimensional trading to much more kind of probabilistic, looking at different outcomes and saying which outcome fits what I know and what I believe to be true. And I think that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah. You saw the tools we showed yesterday. It's just very beginning. I think AI tools will be side by side the traditional tools and widgets you have, your chart, your chain, your screener and scanner. And you'll see deeper integration, not just in the charting and the scanning, which we're going live with now, but also in the back testing, in the simulation, and eventually the execution side as well.
Yep.
So in the same way that like AI has integrated the software engineering tool chain with things like Cursor.
Yep.
I think it'll
Perfect.
integrate with trading, and Robinhood Legends sort of going to be leading that charge, because we're sort of among the few that are working on these tools for retail in a big way and still iterating and innovating.
Yeah, I think, AI in general, particularly here, the benefits of it will tend to accrue in areas where things are more technical, and it'll allow a simplification for an average person, right? To cross.
And when there's so much data and information to pour over, it's funny. One of the first use cases of NVIDIA GPUs, you probably remember as I do, NVIDIA used to be a gaming GPU company. So if you wanted to like play Doom 3 or Crysis at high frames per second, you'd buy an NVIDIA GPU. Then they came out with the NVIDIA Tesla high performance computing chips and the CUDA tool chain. This was, I want to say, 2009. And one of the early customers, when they expanded beyond graphics, was trading firms who are using these things to price options. So in a way, you had gaming and options trading basically laying the foundations behind the AI revolution that we're in the midst of.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't have gone there until you brought it up, but I couldn't agree more. Trading has been at the forefront of neural networks.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding kind of statistical modeling, particularly in the option space. So it's a natural connection for now to come full circle. And now AI really to help take retail and people into that world and expand their possibilities there. So I really do see this as a huge unlock for options specifically on an institutional level, but as well as retail.
Yeah.
So, but let's move on from the options a little bit. You also announced short selling, which I actually think is it was a
big crowd pleaser. Yeah, for sure. If you see our social posts, the shorting one just went viral like wildfire.
And if you think about why, right? You're kind of holding, with two arms, you're holding one arm behind your back.
That's true.
If you're trading only long.
Yeah.
And a big differentiator is that institutions don't have that.
Totally.
Right. And they have a million ways to kind of play both sides and be much more dynamic.
Yeah.
So you really kind of allowed retail to play with both hands at this point.
Yeah. There's been a long-standing belief, I should say, that retail investors don't like short selling. But that's not exactly true. Retail investors like short selling just fine. They don't like being at a disadvantage to the institutions. And so I think that was why this was so well received, because, I mean, not only is it an interesting product, but it's one of those things that institutions have had access to for a long time that frankly hasn't been accessible to retail. Yep. And people know when Robinhood integrates it, it's going to be easy to use, accessible, low cost. I think it'll be the best shorting product, and we'll integrate it into all of the interfaces that we've rolled out. So obviously standard order ticket, but also the ladder, the equities ladder where we demonstrated, also the chart. So as we sort of like extend the platform and we add new capabilities, the value just accrues to our users.
I couldn't agree more. And it's perfect timing. Not that markets are going to decline tomorrow or whatever, but we are at record valuations. Like in terms of, you look at 2000 valuations and, the probabilities of some two-sided trading, right? Not just number go up all the time, is more likely. And again, that could be, again, it'll be nice to have that dynamism and ability to trade both sides if and when that time comes, which it always inevitably does, right? So
if we go to Robinhood as a business, one of the criticisms we've had historically is that when we're in like bull market times, the business is just firing on all cylinders. Metrics are good. People trade a lot.
Completely.
But the traders tend to get less active when we get to bear markets.
Absolutely.
But over the past couple of years, we've been working to really change that by giving our active traders more tools. So we've made multi-leg options really easy to use, reduce the friction. It used to be kind of clunky to get into a multi-leg options trade, but now we have the side-by-side chain. We've got simulated returns. Those have been going very well. And if you look at equities, short selling wasn't an option. Of course, you could get some of that intent with, inverse ETFs and things of that nature. But I think shorting will make the business more resilient on the equities side too.
Yep.
Because it'll give people a way to execute on a point of view during, declining markets.
Historically, if you look at, talking about the business a little bit, if you look at things like the CME and the CBOE, they actually can be countercyclical at times. Like their volumes can actually increase into market declines.
Yeah.
And in a much more multipolar world, that's also secularly potentially a major benefit. So I do think, whereas asset managers, brokerage firms that are more long-only equity focused have significant problems with this. So you've kind of made your business more resilient, candidly. Yeah.
We made our business much more resilient over the past few years, for sure, because, when 2022 hit and it was a difficult time for the markets, we'd gone from a zero interest rate environment to the highest rates in 30 years, the highest inflation in 30 years. Right. If you were a lot of companies in our broader sector, like if you were a mortgage company, they just battened down the hatches and said, we're going to just go through, we're going to make it through the winter and hopefully markets inevitably will improve at some point.
Yeah.
And we said, we're not going to do that. Our approach will be give customers what they need right now. So we had the high yield products, Robinhood Gold came out, and we really started investing in options and building out futures for precisely that reason, because derivatives trading and interest in derivatives actually tends to increase.
Agreed.
During bear markets.
Yeah, it's interesting as a firm named Robinhood, you're essentially aligning your interests with your customers' interests too. You're making them more resilient, and by extension, making yourselves more resilient, which I think is actually great too.
I think there's a misconception that somehow, Robinhood does well if our customers do poorly and we're misaligned.
Yeah.
But if we look at like what's healthy for Robinhood, it's, our revenue scales with assets under custody. And we've got about 300 billion in total platform assets on the platform. So over $250 billion now. And, our monetization rates at between 1% to 2% on average. So the best thing for Robinhood is for you to fund your account, keep putting money in, do well with your investments, and for your account balance and assets to just increase over time as you continue to be with us. So in that sense, long-term, we're highly aligned to our customers doing well, because the more assets our customers have, the more revenue we generate. So couldn't be further from the truth, the misconception. We really spend a lot of time thinking about how to give customers the tools to do well and grow their assets over time.
Absolutely. Before we get to social, which I know you're excited about, I think I am too, obviously being somebody who's involved in social media as well, I want to talk about the great wealth transfer. We're seeing about $50 trillion will change hands from boomers, older people, down to a kind of more millennial Gen Z crowd, which is obviously much more your demographic historically, right? Because of the new innovation and all the different things. That's 50 trillion in the next 10, in the next 20 years. It's supposed to be over 100 trillion.
Over 100 trillion. Yeah. Over 100 trillion will change hands in the great wealth transfer, largest movement of assets of all time.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, particularly given, naturally a lot of your customers are going to be playing with generally a lot more money.
Yeah.
Right? And you're giving them the tools. I mean, even in my business, I see a lot of people coming to me who are older that are brought to me by their younger, their son or their daughter, right?
Yeah. We see a lot of that too.
Yeah.
I mean, investing in your brokerage used to be passed along by parent to child. So it's a real incentive, particularly for those that have more assets and are a little older.
Yeah. And I think maybe the argument had been, that's not they don't have the ability to do X or Y.
Yes.
I think expanding the offering, right? Going head to head with Merrill Lynch's, the Goldman Sachs, whoever, right? Actually puts you in a position to really make a strong argument for why those bigger chunks of money should also be at Robinhood.
Yeah. A lot of our customers, or I should say non-customers largely, the general public said, well, who's going to have their life savings in Robinhood? People aren't going to trust it. It's not really the brand. And the reality is brand follows product. Mm-hmm. So, they were actually right that we weren't the best place for that. We weren't the best brand for that.
Right.
It's because we didn't have the products.
Right.
For a long time, we didn't have retirement accounts. We didn't have joint accounts. You couldn't name a beneficiary. And, frankly, we still have work to do. We don't support fixed income natively. We don't have bonds. Up until fairly recently, we didn't have futures or good multi-leg support or desktop. But we're moving through things very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think the Robinhood this year is very, very different than last year. And it's going to continue to improve. So pretty soon, I think the best way to make sure Robinhood's the best beneficiary of the great wealth transfer is to get, baby boomers and silent generation on the platform. And we've been having more success with that. I think actually there's no reason why, your parents and grandparents, for those of us that are fortunate to still have them around, there's no reason why they can't be on Robinhood.
Yeah, completely agree. You guys announced 8 different things, right? Today. That's amazing. That's incredible progress.
Yeah.
I was actually counting through them.
And actually 2 extra things that were customer feature requests that we promised to build. So really 10 to 11.
That's pretty amazing.
Products.
That's pretty amazing. Let's talk about social, which is, I think, the last one we didn't really talk about. I know it's kind of where you guys started.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear kind of, whenever you talk about it, I hear an extra little tinge of excitement from you about that. Maybe that's because that's kind of where it started. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys are doing and what you're most excited about there. Let's dive in there a little bit.
So we asked ourselves, okay, as a financial platform, how can we differentiate ourselves? Because you don't want to just build another social network. That space is well served by lots and lots of incumbents. But one thing we have is real transactions of incredible variety. So we have, a huge amount of equities trading going on the platform. One of the largest options brokers as well. Futures, recent asset, but we're growing very quickly there as well. Prediction markets, we're one of the largest prediction markets platforms. So you have all of these assets, all of these unique ways to express your point of view about something in the real world, whether it's macro or a football game.
Right.
And what we can do is actually tie your opinion and just like commentary to an actual trade.
Right.
And that, I think, creates a very high signal. We can have actual trades, real performance, make sure you have real skin in the game. And then this gives you a signal for who you should pay attention to. And I think we'll pull on that thread and see where it goes.
I actually think one of the things that interested me the most as somebody who looks at market structure a lot and, is that you allow so seamlessly and easily for people to follow into a trade too.
Yeah.
If they really like the opinion or the trade, within a click or two, they can be in the trade and be following it.
Yeah. We want to make that as easy as possible. We still want the end customer to make the decision and to actually make the trade. But we know that people want to do that. They want to be able to trade directly from the screen where they're doing their analysis, whether it's a chart, and we've done a lot with trading from the chart, or the ladder where you can interact with the order book, or a social post where you're seeing some deep fundamental analysis. So you want to trade right away.
And I know this isn't your intention or, not something that you guys control, but my guess is that, we've had essentially a bunch of Wall Street bets, little pockets where people coordinate and talk and think about, I don't want to say coordinate, but think about ideas together and bet together. And I find it interesting that now you could, in theory, be widening that out and broadening it together. And you could kind of be creating a broader army. And I do think that'll have some really interesting effects on market structure. Retail has had a huge impact on markets more broadly. And if you actually allow them to come together in a much more kind of dynamic way, that could really change things in a major way.
Yeah.
And an advantage to some of that crowd, actually.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Wall Street Bets and some of the other subreddits that have become very popular. I mean, I think Wall Street Bets has something like 20 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And you look at the screenshots on that subreddit. I mean, the lion's share of those screenshots are Robinhood screenshots. So a lot of our users are using that as a platform to share ideas. And they've been asking for verified trades for a long time because they feel this pain point. This is a screenshot. Someone's telling me they're doing this trade. Seems a little outlandish. Is there any way Robinhood can attach a certificate to it so you can actually see what's going on? And so one of the things we're launching in tandem with social is verified posting of these widgets and trades to external platforms. And I think that's something that
it's a big deal.
Our community members, even if they're outside of Robinhood, have been wanting for a long time.
I started in the business in 97. So my first kind of experience was 98, 99, 2000.
Yeah.
Right? Was that retail boom that happened at the end of that bubble.
That's when I started trading.
Oh, did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that, and certain things rhyme, right? I mean, we not only valuation wise, but we have a tremendous amount of liquidity being pushed into the system right now. And more to come probably. So I do think this year, some of that social stuff, it's like, a perfect time to kind of get people betting on some of those outcomes together and talking about and navigating what's a volatile, potentially wild ride. All right.
Yeah. I mean, you had in the 97 to 2000 period, the .com internet super cycle, right? Where you had just a ton of speculation around this new technology. And I think new technologies sometimes lead to bubbles, right? Then you had cloud, broadband, mobile right after that. That was a little bit muted because you had the global financial crisis.
Right. Liquidity coming out of the system, right? During that time.
A lot of people are saying, AI, there's just a huge capital expenditure going into these data centers. A lot of money is flowing into a lot of AI stocks. And people are wondering whether there's a bubble or not. And I think now we have the tools to actually express that point of view. Who knows?
Right.
Even if there's a bubble, they can go on for quite a while.
Well, I want to be clear. A lot of people made a ton of money trading in 98, 99, and even through 2000.
Yeah.
And especially, again, by managing shorts, by using options, by trading multidimensionality of interest rates and FX, right? I think again, you guys are introducing all the right things at just the right time. Last thing, just to wrap this up, you talked a lot about what you did today, right? And what you guys have been working on the last year. What are you most excited for next year? And in 5 years, what do you see as the next chapter? You guys have introduced so much. You guys are moving so fast.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've announced that we now have to roll out fully and keep iterating upon. So, I mean, even social, we've announced it. People are excited. Now we have to deliver. Tokenization, great progress in Europe, but there's much more to be done. We really want to have 24/7, round the clock, on-chain markets for all assets, including publics and privates. And we're at the very beginning of that journey. And then the AI super cycle, I mean, we're a big participant there. And we've made such progress with Robinhood Cortex, including some of the things that we saw yesterday with indicators, custom indicators and scanner generation, that we're going to go much further. So we announced an AI event that we're going to be hosting in December of this year. So not quite next year, but it'll be our 5th product event of the year. And I think there will be some surprises there, that some things that our traders aren't expecting. So looking forward to that.
I think the integration of AI is going to be a huge deal in the next year.
Yeah, and I don't think any of our competitors are really trying. So one of the criticisms of Robinhood is, hey, you guys are just launching products that have been around for a while. Your competitors have had them. You're maybe putting a nice UI. But at least in AI and crypto, I think we're very much at the frontier and really innovating. So I'm excited to share more and more of that with our customers.
Well, I'm excited about the AI and the options piece most of all, but it all sounds absolutely amazing. Excited to see what happens in the next year. Thank you, Vlad, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet your money just got made on Flex.
Thanks for listening to Top Traders Unplugged. If you feel you learned something of value from today's episode, the best way to stay updated is to go on over to your favorite podcast platform and follow the show so that you'll be sure to get all the new episodes as they're released. We have some amazing guests lined up for you, and to ensure our show continues to grow, please leave us an honest rating and review. It only takes a minute, and it's the best way to show us you love the podcast. We'll see you next time on Top Traders Unplugged. But before we go, we just need to remind you that this podcast expresses the view of KaiNexus LLC and the guests appearing on the podcast as of the date of its recording, and such views are subject to change without notice. KaiNexus LLC and Top Traders Unplugged do not have any duty or obligation to update the information contained herein. Furthermore, KaiNexus LLC and Top Traders Unplugged make no representation to its accuracy, and it shall not be assumed that past investment performance is an indication of future results. Moreover, wherever there is a potential for profit, there is also the possibility of loss. This content is made available for educational purposes only and should not be used for any other purpose. The information contained in this podcast does not constitute and should not be construed as investment advice or an offering of advisory services or an offer to sell or a solicitation to buy any securities or related financial instruments in any jurisdiction. Certain information contained herein concerning economic trends, performance, and other data is based on or derived from information provided by independent third-party sources. KaiNexus LLC and Top Traders Unplugged may believe that the sources from which such information are obtained are reliable. However, each of KaiNexus LLC and Top Traders Unplugged cannot guarantee the accuracy of such information and has not independently verified the accuracy or completeness of such information or the assumptions on which such information is based. This podcast, including the information contained herein, may not be reproduced, copied, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without the prior written consent of KaiNexus LLC and Top Traders Unplugged.